there's so much about this movie you can preface with, because you know this movie is called Cannibal Holocaust.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Welcome to Final Transmission, where this week we discuss Cannibal Holocaust. My name's Sam Russo, and with me as always is...
Jamie Carruthers.
This movie...
Yeah.
Not fun.
No.
Really. Not much of a romp.
One would argue that there is some romping.
Yeah, there's definitely romping of sorts. Trigger warning, everybody. We're talking about cannibalism, no surprise. There's also going to be a lot of, unavoidably, talk of rape.
Yeah.
All kinds of dismemberment. Lots of animal abuse. So, you know, if you're feeling in any way queasy or like any of that kind of stuff upsets you, maybe just fucking go to bed. Call it a day. Because this is a rough hang.
If any of that's an issue for you, I would recommend the Vipco House of Horrors DVD release from 2001, where it's all cut out.
Oh, really? There's a version with everything
Well,
cut out?
not everything, but there's no turtle death.
Oh,
There's no,
okay.
You don't see the pig get shot. The rape scene is cut down to enough that you get the gist. You still see the snake and the spider get cut in half because, you know, fuck creepy crawlies.
Yep.
And then the last sort of 10-minute section is maybe only 8 minutes, so it's a little bit tamer as well. So if you're of a weaker disposition, go watch that version. If you are too legit to quit, then go uncut. Did you go uncut?
Yeah, I didn't have a fucking choice, dude. I just watched whatever I end up with. And I think I very much got an uncut version. Everything you mentioned was present and correct during the Russo viewing of this particular morsel.
So I watched the cut version this time because I wanted to see how much it affects the flow of the movie.
Sure.
And you'll be shocked to learn that it does not. You don't need to see a turtle get killed. Turns out. Not
at all. That's you really taking one for the team there, because I know how much you love everything that was cut from this movie, I imagine. The whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, this is a treat for Jamie.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Oof, I thought we'd never get a break. How you doing?
Not too bad, how about you?
Good, just hanging out listening to this new Boll Weevils record. First one since 1995. How's that for a stoker?
Nice. How does it sound?
Sounds amazing. It's called Essential. It's out on Red Scare Industries. And I would say their best record since 1995.
Nice.
It's an absolute banger. Get your hands on it now.
And you said it's out on Red Scare Industries?
It is out on Red Scare Industries, yeah. That's, one more time. Red Scare Industries is the label.
Nice. I heard that they're celebrating 20 years of being a label next year.
20 years next year, yeah. I bet it's flown by for everyone except the bands.
Do you think we've had enough of a break and we should probably talk about some films again?
Yeah, let's get down this slip and slide and see what's waiting for us at the end.
So you'd never seen Cannibal Holocaust before?
I had, actually.
Oh, you had?
Yeah, you'll be astonished to learn. As soon as I started watching it, I realized that I had seen it before and it brought back a flood of memories. So I saw this on VHS at my friend Tom Durley's house. Shout out Tom Durley. He, my friend Billy, and I watched Cannibal Holocaust. We had two VHSs. One was Evil Dead and one was Cannibal Holocaust. And we had a choice between the two. I was outvoted. Cannibal Holocaust went in the VHS player.
And then you never watched Evil Dead ever again?
I did. I watched it as soon as humanly possible because I thought it looked amazing. I must have been 15, 16. And I don't remember enjoying the first time round. I remember just not really getting it and just thinking it was pretty sensational, you know, kind of offensive and graphic for the sake of it, and just not having a blast. Because I thought it was like beers in a movie. And what I got was torture porn and maybe like one French brasserie stubby from Aldi that was warm. So I was let down on all fronts. I didn't vividly remember much of the movie, so revisiting it now with a whole different mindset and all the beers I could drive in me was you know, big change of pace. What about you? What were your early memories of this movie? Was it given to you in the crib? At what point did you watch this?
No, so I think I watched this, I think I was maybe 13.
Okay.
My friends, Stuart and Simon, they were brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Their dad had a huge bootleg VHS collection. So I saw most of the horror films that I definitely shouldn't have been watching through that. And I think I took Faces of Death, Cannibal Holocaust, and what was the other one? I want to say it was something that was also horrible. Maybe it was Necromantic. Not appropriate viewing for a 13-year-old.
A 13-year-old, not even you at 13.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I watched them like with the sound really low after I was supposed to be asleep in bed with my little fucking combo TV video player in my bedroom, and just had a very conflicted time. I think I approached it similar to you because the other films that I'd watched at Stuart and Simon's was like Nightmare on Elm Street, The Evil Deads. Like the fun movies. And so I was like, hey, these are all fun and cool. Let's go have a fun and cool time. Oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. I went in thinking, I didn't think I was in for like Toxic Avenger style hijinks, but I did not think it was going to be the movie that it was. I knew it was a banned movie, and it was the old black VHS cover with like the dripping blood, and it had Cannibal Holocaust, the movie they didn't want you to see, and all that kind of stuff. So the hype was pretty massive. Yeah. And I remember the pictures on the back are all the pictures that you associate with the movie, the stills that they obviously drummed up a lot of hype with. And somehow I just still was pretty astonished at how graphic and hard-hitting it was. And I definitely remember it was a first for me in a lot of horror, well, in a lot of movie tropes in general. It was a first for me seeing, probably seeing full frontal nudity in an actual movie, that isn't, well, I mean, in a lot of ways this is kind of pornographic, but like that isn't a porn movie. And I think it was definitely the first time I'd seen any kind of like graphic depiction of rape or, all the kind of stuff that's really hard hitting in this movie was firsts for me. And yeah, I definitely remember walking away from that experience thinking, I don't know if I enjoyed that. I don't know if I should have enjoyed it. I remember Durley really enjoyed it. Tom Durley loved this movie. And Billy, speaks very highly of it to this day. I think I walked away a little bit more conflicted than them. And it's been a journey for me to get to the point where I can appreciate this movie, I think.
So how do you feel about it now?
Fucked up still. Yeah. I watching it was a totally unpleasant experience, almost front to back. But, my brain has grown a little bit. My understanding of, why movies like this get made is deeper. And I appreciate the art, the artistry, the execution, and the bravery of the movie, I think. It does some fucking crazy shit that for the time you are just not thinking is in the world. Do you know what I mean? This movie doesn't have any right existing in the time period it does. It's way ahead of its time, I think. Yeah. Or just out of time completely. Like it does some stuff that's completely fucking bonkers.
There's a lot of talk these days about like, oh, you couldn't make blank these days.
Yeah, sure.
And like a lot of it, like you could.
Yeah.
But like you couldn't make Cannibal Holocaust now. Maybe somebody could, but nobody would watch it.
It wouldn't have an audience. That's what is meant by that, I think. Like you could make it. We could make it, but it wouldn't have a fucking audience. And there's a good reason for that. I don't think by and large people really enjoy watching movies like this. I think it's more that these movies are kind of necessary. Yeah. In a way. There's a polarizing argument around this movie in every respect. But the main argument to me that I've found seems to be this is total trash. It shouldn't exist. It's just gratuitous bullshit. And the other end is this is a really fucking brave, nuanced social commentary masterpiece. And there's a lot in between. And the in between is kind of where I live. I like aspects of both of those arguments. And I think aspects of both of those arguments are what make this movie truly great. Dare I say it? I mean, not a pleasant thing to watch, I don't think, from front to back, but you walk away from it feeling fairly satisfied that you've made it to the end, and you've walked away with this kind of accumulated experience of genuine horror, real terror, and serious fucking unease. I think it does a lot of things really fucking well, even if those things are terrible.
I think like the gore effects are, I would say, unsurpassed. Like
in terms of their realism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that there's a scene very near the start where what looks like a human forearm and hand is being eaten.
Yeah.
And it looks like raw chicken, which is exactly what I think, that part of your arm, if it's being eaten, is going to look like,
So we know that Ruggero Deodato went to South America and filmed real cannibal tribes.
Yeah.
Cast them as the savages.
Yeah.
Big scare quotes there.
Yeah.
In the movie. I think that's a real skeletal arm. I think every skull that you see is a real skull.
Fucked.
Yeah, I think so much of it is real. I think that's one of the really magical things that this film does, is it really blends reality with fiction in a way that is designed to obfuscate and confuse you.
Yes.
Like, I think the bones that you see are real bones because they just had them lying around because they were literally cannibals.
Yeah, dude, that arm looks really real now that you mention it.
Yeah. Like, obviously, the killing that happens in the Green Inferno scene towards the end, that's not real, obviously. The woman on the stick, not real. The Cambodian stuff that we're told is not real, is real.
That's real, yeah.
Like, so it's really meant to, like, fuck with your head as to what's real and what's not. And that's why, presumably, it feels so real to this day, and why, obviously, Deodato got taken to court on murder charges.
Fucking charged with murder. It's insane. I mean, listen, if you're listening to this, you know a little bit about Cannibal Holocaust, and we have to assume.
Yeah.
So we can just kind of leap in the middle and explode this outwards, because the movie is everything you just said and more. If those bones are real, I'm astonished at the next level filmmaking. I just assumed that was some incredible gore effects.
I mean, I could be wrong.
No, but I'm leaning into it, Jamie.
Yeah.
Like, you're an authority on this kind of stuff. And I think we should move forward with the operating understanding that those are real bones, maybe just stuffed with raw meat here and there.
Yeah.
Which is completely bananas. Like, and any time we talk about the tribal performers in this movie, I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, basically, because I don't feel comfortable characterizing an entire group of people that I don't fully understand historically. And from a sociological point of view, calling them a cannibal tribe feels a bit reductive.
Yeah.
They're definitely tribespeople who, by all accounts, engage in cannibalism. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm politically correct enough to know how to refer to everyone in this movie correctly. So
yeah, so it's worth saying that they were a tribe that engaged in cannibalism, but it wasn't like they just ate anyone that wandered through their village or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like a revenge thing, like a power thing over like the other tribes that they would sort of fight with on a regular basis and war with, and it was because there wasn't that much meat around. Yeah. So it wasn't like they love eating human flesh, or maybe it wasn't to start with. Who knows? Yeah. I am not an anthropologist. I am a communications officer. I don't know, they weren't in a Bugs Bunny cartoon with a big bone through their nose, like... Yeah. And they were only, 100 meters away from civilization, in air quotes. But they lived as if they were thousands and thousands of miles away from anywhere. So Letitia, which is, the nearest town to where this was shot, a pretty vibrant place at the time. It was pretty gentrified, as much as something in South America could be in the 70s. There's a lot of drug running that went through there. I think there's a lot of drug money that contributed to the making of this film. I watched a documentary by Callum Waddell a few months ago called Searching for Cannibal Holocaust, where he sort of he delves into the making of it in a bit more detail than some of the other articles that you might have read or that are out there. Sure. And he goes to Letitia. He interviews some of the tribespeople that were in the movie. Wow. It's a really good documentary. I'd really recommend it. They do a lot of talking about the piranha scene that may or may not exist. The piranha scene that never was, yeah. And they find some stills of that, so it definitely was shot. Yeah. It's a crime that we don't get to see piranhas eat someone's leg in this movie. Am I right in thinking that's just because they couldn't film underwater and they didn't think it was arresting enough what they had? Like the above surface shots just weren't quite there. I mean, we don't know. I think that's one of the mythology stories around it. Ruggero Deodato flat out refuses to admit that they shot anything. He says that they didn't shoot
Weird.
it. It was in the script, but the effect wouldn't work, so we didn't bother shooting it.
And he died last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took that to his grave.
Yeah. Took those piranhas to his grave.
Yeah.
I mean, I find this aspect of this movie fascinating because it's not something that I was aware of when I watched it as a child, literally as a teenager. And then as an adult, you're looking at it through this lens of, pretty severe exploitation at one end, hyper-realism at the other. And you're trying to kind of marry the two and decide where you stand almost the whole way through the movie. So you're right. The sense of confusion and the sense of moral conflict the whole time you're watching is rough. It's like you can't figure out where to land on almost every single issue in this movie as you're watching it. You're entertained in this hyper-morbid, desperately uncomfortable way. And by the time you reach even, I don't know, the 20-minute mark, potentially, you're exhausted.
Yeah, this film doesn't waste any time.
No.
We're straight into the jungle. We're straight into natives getting their faces shot off. You sort of get a little breather in the middle when we start the documentary. But then as soon as that hits a point, it just grows and grows and grows and crescendos in the most horrible way.
Yeah, it's such a false lull in the middle there, isn't it? You think, fuck, okay, so we're in a city now. We're back. There's going to be like a lot of boardroom stuff and everyone's going to be chilling and talking. And then wham, we're fucking straight back in there. And it's twice as brutal as it was when we left.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I find the idea of quote unquote the jungle really scary. And I always have. Like, I find the environment of the jungle absolutely terrifying. There was a hot minute of jungle movies, when we were kids, especially movies like Predator, I think really hammer home that jungle angle for me. Anything that was kind of even loosely based on the Vietnam War or any kind of jungle warfare stuff I found horrifying growing up. Still find it all really unnerving.
Yeah.
There's a great solo RPG that I like to play called Hot Jungle, and it's absolutely terrifying and draws on all of these tropes. So as soon as we're put in that jungle and they're using phrases like the Green Inferno, I'm immediately like, fuck, Jesus Christ. Like, I want to back out of this immediately. So, that opening scene and the opening title with this beautiful, mellow, poppy orchestral music playing and the words Cannibal Holocaust in huge letters on the screen. Holy unnerving.
I love that. I love it so much. I love that juxtaposition of Rizal Talani's score against... You got these sort of fairly shonky plane shots or helicopter shots of like green pastures and jungle and stuff. And it's just so at odds with itself.
Yeah.
And it's like the only piece that you really get in the whole film.
Yeah.
And I love that music keeps coming back in like the most horrible places.
Massive.
And it absolutely just adds to the confusion just more and more, that you're just like listening to this really lovely music while people are just doing the worst things you could think of.
Doing horrible, naughty things. But you're right, these like idyllic helicopter scenes. We're seeing the river winding. We're seeing all this lush, verdant forest, basically untouched wild landscape with I've written in my notes, I've just written, I'm chill. Like, I'm okay. I was giggling at how frightened I was of what was coming next because I knew what I was being teed up for,
Yeah.
Then we get that great but we get the first like real sort of narrative driven shot where you've got the giant Dracula billboard. We get some of the most dick dialogue I've ever heard in my entire life. Things like, there's only one thing that scares me, and that's marriage. We get some great dialogue early on.
That's so weird as well, because I think that the performances in this film are pretty fucking good.
Okay, but what kind of good are we talking here?
Like, good. Once you get over that sort of first scene, once people are in the jungle, I think all the performances are amazing.
Okay.
I don't know, you don't get accused of murder if your performances are bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, by that measure, for it to be convincing enough that a guy actually got taken to court.
Yeah, literally.
There has to be a level of realism to the performance.
The performances in the footage are better than the performances in the film.
Sure, I think I agree there, yeah.
But I think that they're pretty good. And I think when your main guy doesn't have an awful lot to interact with, he's much better than when he's having boardroom conversations. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think that was... I mean, I'm not saying it is, but let's explore this a bit. Do you think that's a deliberate choice? That the movie, at the start, we're watching a movie, is maybe not quite acted as convincingly, and there are some pretty choice lines of dialogue in there. For that to be one way, and then for the latter part of the movie that is supposed to be real documentary footage to be that much more convincingly visceral and human. Do you think is there a comment on Hollywood? Are we being led somewhere with that? Is that deliberate, or do you think it's just not the best acting at the start, pretty amazingly realistic acting at the end?
I've read a lot of interviews with Diodato about this, about Cannibal Holocaust, and he's never mentioned that. And I think
he should. It's a great theory.
Yeah. Well, he can't now. There are bugs on his skull wherever he is. Probably.
Yep, he is dead.
Bugs crawling on his skull, much like every single skull. Why is there always a bug on a skull?
There's always a bug in, on, or around a skull.
Yeah.
They love it. I don't know. If you're a bug, where are you going first? I'm going to the nearest eyeball.
Yeah, I heard that in London, your skull is never more than 2 feet from a bug.
2 feet from a bug. Yeah, and I think right now there's many parts of my anatomy that are no more than 2 feet away from a bug of some kind. Yeah, okay, so we get some pretty loosey-goosey dialogue there in the beginning. We get these radical pivot cuts to tribespeople eating the aforementioned fleshy arms, limbs, etc. They're gunned down by army types, guys in pretty unconvincing short-sleeve army fatigues. We get another great line of dialogue. I know this is not going to be a picnic, which I thought was pretty good. Yeah. The title alone tells you there's going to be some picnicking of sorts. There's a slow build of truly ominous vibes around the quote-unquote tree people, where we hear lots of people saying, no white man has ever seen the tree people. And we start to think, oh, fuck, Jesus Christ, it's not the tree people. Like, these other guys are bad enough. What are the tree people like? We're treated to a lot of shots of monkeys. A muskrat gets eaten. Yeah. A native is captured, forced to do coke off a knife, and then eats the muskrat's stomach. We're in pretty grim territory straight away. We're probably like 7 minutes in, max, and all of that's already happened. How do you feel watching this?
Even from the very start, you feel like this is a film that you're not supposed to be watching.
Yeah, it feels prohibited.
It feels so forbidden.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the amazing charm of Cannibal Holocaust, is that you feel like you are categorically not supposed to be watching this.
It is.
I am 37 years old and I was worried my mum was going to walk in.
Yeah. It's that unflinching, deep dive into as many taboos as you can cram into a movie without it hampering the artistry. I think that's what Italians do so well in horror, is just layer these taboos without it being too heavy-handed. If I can say that about Cannibal Holocaust, I don't think it's too heavy-handed.
Not in its taboos.
No, not in its taboos. It's fucking with you from the very start. Yeah. It just gets worse from here on out.
It's not the most horrible and violent cannibal film.
No.
The most horrible and violent cannibal film from this period is probably Cannibal Ferox.
Yep, Cannibal Ferox I think is absolutely unwatchable.
But this feels worse because it feels so much more real. It's just so much better.
It's made well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wrestled with that. I didn't know if this was a well-made movie when I, turned it off at the end of the credits and went and cried silently in my kitchen. I thought to myself, what would I want to see done differently to make it a better movie? And as usual, I didn't come up with a lot because it's made exactly the way it's meant to be. It's a statement of intent. It's fully executed without pulling back for even a second. And it's absolutely brutal.
No, it really is, and it's so unflinching and so. I think it's just incredible. I think it's an incredible feat of cinema.
It does not wash its hands at any point.
It certainly doesn't.
One of the most uncomfortable moments in this film, I think, is the ritualistic punishment for adultery, which comes, I can't remember, maybe around the halfway mark, maybe quite a bit before the halfway mark. But our guy who has gone into the jungle to track down 3 lost documentary filmmakers is treated to seeing this ritual. Yeah. Which is, again, just, brutal to watch. It's really long as well. It's a long scene.
They're all long scenes, though, aren't they?
Lots of angles. They are, yeah. There's a lot of holding in this. It's not a cut type movie.
Everything feels like it goes on a minute or 3 longer than it needs to.
Which is a really long time in terms of watching something uncomfortable, isn't it? A minute is a long time to watch something like this. It's full on, and it's borderline painful to watch. And, you are kind of left like, okay, why did that just happen in this movie? and what purpose does it serve? And I really think you're told pretty quickly that is setting the tone for the level of brutality you're about to experience for the next hour.
Yeah, and it's also like setting up the punishment for rape, because they kill the woman that they rape.
Yeah.
The tribes people, the Yabo Mamos, kill the woman that the documentary crew rape,
mm-hmm.
and then they go after them.
Yeah.
As you would.
Yeah.
It's almost like this is a rape revenge film in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tight amount of time for that particular plot line, if you can call it that, to unfold at the end, but it happens pretty quick sticks.
Yeah.
And there, again, I feel like this is actually quite important to the plot, like you said, but it's a big mission statement in terms of, I hope you're comfortable, because this is just going to keep coming. Yeah. Was there anything around that you found? I mean, that scene kind of speaks for itself. If you've seen it, you know. If you haven't, you will. But was there anything around that struck you? Like, there's a scene where they're drinking, they're invited to the sort of tribal supper around the fire, and the white guys are asked / forced to drink this, like, regurgitated white paste in what looks like a coconut husk.
Yeah.
I had to pause the movie there and just take a deep breath, because I thought that was just awful. I find that stuff so hard to see.
I've seen you drink worse.
That's true. In real life, I've definitely done and drank worse than a couple of things that happen in Cannibal Holocaust. But there's just something about drinking somebody else's non-specific regurgitated white fluid that made me feel a little bit retchy. Is that bad?
Yeah, well, I think anytime that you see the white characters interact with the tribes people, it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In a way that is different, a different kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because this film is called Cannibal Holocaust. You're always waiting for the Holocaust to be committed by cannibals. So when you're in those moments, you're like, oh shit, is this the Holocaust? Is the Holocaust about to happen?
There's so much about this movie you can preface with, because you know this movie is called Cannibal Holocaust. I mean, we haven't actually talked about how incredible that title is. I mean,
it's amazing.
Come on, like, call your movie Cannibal Holocaust. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it does exactly what it says on the tin. If you're going to dig deep into it, the big question is it a Holocaust of cannibals, or are the cannibals committing a Holocaust? Like, where are we? Why are we there?
So the cannibals kill 3 people
that we see. Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously they killed more people than 3 people in their existence, because they are a warring tribe that live in the trees, and
they do eat people as well. It's part of their MO.
Yeah. Is 3 people a Holocaust?
No, but is it a great title? Fuck yeah. It's eye-catching.
How many people is it that you need to do a Holocaust?
I don't know, but what I do know is that I once went to my friend Smith's house wearing a Megadeth t-shirt, and when I walked through the door, his dad went, Megadeth? How many deaths is a Megadeth? And then he looked up a bit, and then he went, yes, 1,000 deaths.
Well, that's exactly what I thought.
So, Cannibal Megadeth would be a whole different movie.
Yeah.
Rest assured, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know how many people need to die for it to be a Holocaust.
I don't know if it's quantity.
Is it 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4, 5 bananas make a Holocaust, and so do many more? Is that how the song goes?
Is that a song you were taught as a child?
It's the theme tune to the Banana Splits, the Holocaust.
Banana Holocaust,
Splits.
the sequel to Cannibal Holocaust. One thing I found really uncomfortable in the interaction between the white characters and the native characters in this movie is any time that the guide was present, who I believe is Salvatore Basile.
Yep.
Playing Chaco.
Yeah.
Because his interpretation of everything that the native people do is really tawdry. I mean, he's just kind of very accepting of everything in a pretty open-minded way, but he's also, in his delivery of a lot of the lines, wildly like judgmental and superior. So he feels super nihilistic, like he's just kind of profiting off of exactly what this movie's doing in a lot of ways, I guess, profiting off of this kind of sordid native tourism of exposing these people to the eyes of the white man and everything that comes with that. So I found him as kind of a conduit and a lens for the sort of the way the white people view the tribes people really uncomfortable. And obviously he's the one who instigates a lot of the real fucking crazy dick behavior, like, you know, forcing a native kid to do coke off a knife and then feeding him muskrat guts. Like, that's pretty wild.
It's weird that they kill all the natives at the beginning, right? They just land there and they're like, oh, kill you.
I didn't get that scene at all. Am I right in thinking they just land and kind of clear the area, like clear the LZ? They just kill any that are nearby? In
a movie where it ends with cannibal revenge in the most gruesome way.
Yeah, I guess it tees it up.
Shoot, I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like the relationship between Monroe and the tribespeople, based on the fact that loads of them were just gunned down, should be a bit more difficult.
It never quite sits right with me that he is kind of accepted as easily as he is. He plays a tape recorder of what we assume is a song of significance to the tribe. Yeah. And
that's a different tribe. That's the...
Oh, God,
that's
of course it is.
That's the Yamamamos.
Yeah. So how does he ingratiate himself with the first tribe?
I don't really know. He just
sort of hooks up, sits down.
Yeah, he's just there.
Yeah, some of that stuff was kind of tough to swallow. You know, if we're really going nitpicky on the plot, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really make any sense. And a lot of people's motivations are quite vague. But, you know, in a hyper-realistic movie, we don't need that level of exposition. We're just sort of shown fucked up shit. And our take-home messages, people are fucked up. Of course, they just gunned down a load of tribespeople as soon as they landed in the jungle.
Yeah.
And I guess it adds to the mystique and the fact that we understand nothing about, you know, the social structure of these tribespeople, their history in the area, their rituals, their ways. We know nothing, and we're not told anything really, apart from tiny little tidbits throughout the movie that kind of heighten our level of unease. We're not told many positive things. We're not told many, like, endearing qualities. It's mostly about eating people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the use of the word savage, savages, that kind of thing. So we know that we're being led to a point where this behavior is going to be addressed, where you can't land in the jungle, blow away a bunch of native people, fuck with them endlessly, torture, rape, and, you know, in some cases, eat them, and then just walk. So that's slowly building.
Yeah, burn them as well. Don't forget they
burn. Of course, shove them in a hut and burn them. The brutality is almost boundless, isn't it? Because I'd forgotten that scene even happened. Do you know what I mean? And I made pretty detailed notes, and I'd still forgotten in all of the chaos that had even happened. There's a pretty good line of dialogue about smoking weed. The guide guy is smoking a joint, and he says, in the rain, this will keep you high and dry. So that was pretty good.
I think their stuff is so good. Like, it's so naturalistic. It's insane to me that, like, some of them just didn't act again, ever.
And some of them went back to porn, where they started.
Well, yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah, that is, you know, no judgment from me whatsoever. Again, it just astounds me that, you know, this movie did nothing for anyone's career. It was so off menu that nobody was like, oh, that guy from Cannibal Holocaust, let's fucking, even for the novelty, do you know what I mean? Like, people will fucking just stand Stan Lee in a corner and pan past him while he scratches his dick, you know, for the novelty's sake of it. People are always bringing in novel horror movie actors. It's kind of how Danny Trejo built a career, right? Like, but nobody did that with anyone from Cannibal Holocaust that I can see. Everyone's career just went away because it's so, I don't know, it's just such an isolating movie to watch. You don't see big communities of people rallying around Cannibal Holocaust. I know it's a cult classic.
You know, and some people did have ongoing careers afterwards.
I mean, like, the director, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, Arbola, Robert Kerman, he had a pretty storied career afterwards.
But in terms of actors and performers, not a lot, right?
Not beyond Kerman, who was Monroe.
Okay, got you.
And he was already a pretty established actor at the beginning. And I think that's the choice, which is weird because his performance is so different to the documentary performances.
Sure.
But, like, it was like about casting a movie star and then casting people whose faces you've never seen before.
Got you.
Maybe blurring that line between reality and cinema, like we talked about earlier. But I don't know if the performances did that or purposefully did that.
Plays the tugboat captain in Spider-Man.
There you go.
Pretty hilarious.
That's 1 degree of separation.
Yeah. The performances in this movie, I think, are polarizing because, you know, to some people it's just standard B-movie trash. I think to other people it's a genuine and sincere attempt to straddle as close as you possibly can a real live naturalistic performance that's supposed to be documentary-esque in a fucking movie in the jungle.
Do you know when you're in your bedroom as a 15-year-old and you're listening to Pig Destroyer,
Mm-hmm.
and your mum walks in and she's like, "This is horrible noise," but she doesn't really tell the difference between Pig Destroyer and Cradle of Filth,
Yep.
and or Pig Destroyer and Bad Religion.
Sure.
Like, there's no difference there. I think this is what people think of when they think of the horrible horror films that we watch.
Okay.
Like, and Pig Destroyer is the horrible noise that people think of. Like, that level of, like, grind noise
Yeah, sure.
is the same as any other thing to people that don't really know the difference. And I think that people think this is what we like.
Absolutely.
This is what all trashy Italian horror films are like. And, I mean, they're not a million miles away.
They're not far off, but they are wrong. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And to extend that metaphor a little bit, it's like when people say, oh, that's just shouting about an incredible shouted vocal performance. Yeah, it is just shouting, but it's fucking hard. Same with Cannibal Holocaust. Yeah, it's just Holocaust gore. Holocaust gore? Cannibal gore. But it is really, really hard to pull this movie off, I think, is what...
Yeah.
By the end, you're just like, the experience I've just been through cannot be for naught. Like, there's a movie watching experience to be had here. And no, it's not that fun for most people. Like, definitely not fun for me. I imagine you took a little bit more quote-unquote FUN from this than I did. There were a few laugh-out-loud moments. There were a few, fucking hell, this is so uneasy, it's kind of fun moments. But there's no real, like, oh, this is where the rubber hits the road with the the big laughs or the gore for comedy's sake. There's not really any of that. The music does a lot of the legwork there. I think juxtaposing that jovial, upbeat
definitely.
music. I hadn't seen that done a lot in movies, chronologically before this. And I think, Romero borrowed that big time. And some of the more icky scenes in Day of the Dead, in particular, gave me similar feelings to this movie. I don't have the world's broadest palette for comparison with this type of, Pig Destroyer grind gore, but there was echoes of that in some movies that I absolutely love. And I'd be astonished if, Day of the Dead could feel as disgusting as it does without Cannibal Holocaust existing.
Yeah, I wonder about that, because obviously there's the big sort of genre or couple of genres that this is like the progenitor of is like your actual torture porn. So your August Undergrounds, your Pinky Violence Japanese stuff, your guinea pig movies, your movies where it's like, this is so horrible and violent and realistic that Charlie Sheen is calling the FBI.
Right.
Which is Flower of Flesh and Blood, which is a Japanese Pinky Violence film.
Huge in Japan, right? This movie, worth noting.
Well, yeah.
Allegedly.
Japan is a fucked up place, right?
Sure.
I don't understand Japan.
That's
the end of the podcast.
Soundbite.
No, but I don't understand Japan because, I don't know, it's so, there are so many different Japans, right?
That is a much more nuanced take. Yeah, absolutely. Like, how is this right behind E.T. in terms of, like, consumption ratings in Japan for the year that it comes out? There's a big cultural difference there in a nation that can go to the movies and be like, E.T. or Cannibal Holocaust? Fuck, that's a toughie.
Let's do a double bill.
Yeah. Well, I bet a lot of people fucking did. There's a level of bizarro, open-minded fanaticism to Japanese culture that I don't think we can ever fully understand. That's the magic and the beauty of it. Cannibal Holocaust maybe helps us understand it a little bit more. But you're right. What it's bred in terms of movies in a direct influence type way is maybe not the kind of stuff that I would love to sit and watch on a Saturday night with my buds.
No.
But I do think, the viscera has kind of trickled through the rivulets in the jungle floor into some movies that I do really love. Yeah. Which is, maybe setting a standard of griminess that people are able and willing to swallow.
I think it gives people a line and says, here's all of the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So you can choose to cross some and you can choose to stay on this side of others. But just know that the lines are there. The lines have been drawn by Ruggero Deodato in Cannibal Holocaust, and that's all you need. Just knowing that the lines exist, you know how close you can get to the line.
Yeah.
Okay, today I want to stay way on this side of the line,
or I'm on the side of the line that's going to be really controversial, but I'm probably not going to get taken to court for murder. I'm just going to be like, the other side of that line. I totally agree. I think it goes so far. It does kind of set an end-to-end precedent, which you have to fucking take your hat off to for a movie to do that, in this time period, And obviously, like, the Italian movie market has always been just like, beyond European in its openness and its acceptance of a lot of stuff way before, us and the US and other more repressed, censored nations.
It's so weird to me that Italy come out with films that I like, because they are absolutely just a film factory. It's just churn. Like, Deodato made 4 cannibal films in his career, maybe 5. There are hundreds of Italian cannibal films from this era and from there or thereabouts. And it's like, how does one of them just cut through? I mean, I would say 5 of them cut through.
Yeah. Like,
you've got your, what's it called, Man from East River, you've got Cannibal Ferox, you've got Eaten Alive, that's it, probably 4. So, but like the idea that Italy is just churning films forever on a theme, and it's always on a theme, and they cycle through things in a way that British cinema or any other cinema doesn't do. We sometimes get into sort of tropey things. Obviously, superheroes is a big thing forever. No one quite sits on a genre and just churns it out like Italy did. Yeah. And the idea that there are films from that period that we still talk about, or there are films of that period that are so influential, that have basically formed the basis of entire genres.
Yeah,
is pretty incredible, I think.
It is a phenomenon, isn't it? It's strange, and it's interesting because it's almost like these movies are born of obsession, and it's an obsession that we censor kind of inherently. If we feel ourselves getting carried away, part of our national character is not to get carried away. It's to, remain calm, and it's to dial it back, and it's to understate and, really pull back from everything. Whereas in Italian filmmaking,
Cannibal Holocaust.
Exactly, keep calm and Cannibal Holocaust. I mean, but that's what Italy is outright rejecting in its manufacture of these movies, isn't it? It's like, right, we've got this fucking idea, cannibals, let's go, and then they don't stop until they have no more ideas about cannibals, and then they move on. And you're right, that is incredible, and it's kind of childlike. It's indulging that childlike influence to get obsessed with a certain thing, whether it's like a toy or a game or like something that you're into as a kid. You're obsessed with that singularly until you burn out on it, and then you don't even like it anymore. You move on to the next thing. Yeah, that's a pretty wonderful kind of indulgence that I don't think we get culturally in our movie making. We get it in a more contrived capitalist kind of way where we latch onto something that makes money and therefore we pump it to death. But it doesn't come from that same place of classic Italian obsessive love. It's a different thing.
A film that I want to compare this to, and it definitely is a reason, or it's definitely because of that obsession, is Werner Herzog's Fitzcarraldo.
I haven't seen it.
So in Werner Herzog's Fitzcarraldo, which is the film that I watch every year on Christmas.
Okay.
It's my Christmas tradition is I watch Fitzcarraldo and Burden of Dreams. It's a documentary about the making Fitzcarraldo by Les Blank. Fitzcarraldo it's a film about Klaus Kinski's character, Fitzcarraldo, buys a riverboat and is trying to build an opera house in the jungle, in the Amazon jungle.
Okay.
So he gets a riverboat and he travels up the Amazon River with all the stuff to build an opera house on the back, and then has to lug it all up a hill and eventually fails.
Okay.
And it's all about bringing opera to the savages, big air quotes there.
Sure.
But that's the point of the film. And the reason that Cannibal Holocaust reminds me of this, or they share a lot of sort of similar DNA, is because they basically really did that. Werner Herzog, they got a riverboat, they sailed it up the Amazon, they tried to get all this material to build an opera house over this big hill, and they came away with a film. And in Cannibal Holocaust, obviously it's a film about Western people coming into the Amazon, exploiting them for a film. I mean, it's literally what they were doing when they were making this film. And obviously what Deodato is trying to do here is he's sort of skewering the Mondo documentary format, which was obviously quite big from the 20s to the 60s. They would go to these places and they would film these titillating things under the guise of anthropology. and release them in drive-ins or whatever, and people would go watch them, and they'd get, I don't know, their first hard-on over watching someone give birth, or watching a load of tribespeople standing around with their tits out. Yeah. So obviously what Deodato is trying to do here is he's trying to skewer that, but he does the exact same thing. He goes there, he exploits those natives. I feel like when you're so singular a vision like Werner Herzog is, I don't know if I could ever compare in good conscience Ruggero Deodato with Werner Herzog. I think Werner Herzog is one of the most incredible filmmakers, and the rest of Deodato's filmography is a fucking wasteland. Let's not mince words. He's made a couple of movies that I like, but I don't know if he fluked his way into a Cannibal Holocaust.
Sure.
Or like they say that everyone's got one good novel in them. Maybe everyone's got one good Holocaust in them.
Maybe. Oh my god. Oh, I snorted and peeked my mic out. Sorry.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the filmmaking gods were working through him or something.
Something clicked that maybe didn't in his other bits. Yeah. A lot of obsessive creators have that, right? They make an enormous catalogue of art, and one thing is an absolute ripper, and everything else is either garbage or it's has a very niche audience that latch onto it. And yeah, I think I would characterize it as a kind of fervor in this movie. It's artfully cut and it's well paced. It kind of pains me to say that it's well paced because I did not get the pacing on first watch. It took me laying in bed, replaying it in my mind to realize, it played out exactly the way the guy that wrote it wanted it to.
Yeah.
It's incredibly well paced. There was a couple of points when I was making notes where I was writing, I think I'm watching a mystery. I kept saying okay, well, they are looking for these documentarians in the jungle. That's a great premise for a mystery movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a horror. Yes, it's hard to watch. But at its core, I'm kind of watching a mystery. And that's what got me through it, is I had to keep telling myself, ooh, a mystery, just to keep me in it. There's a bit where one of these guys just gets naked. No, it's the main dude. It's
Monroe.
He gets naked in the river, and there's almost a moment of levity where he's horsing around with some native women who are just rubbing mud on his dick, and they're just splashing around in the river and running around a little bit. And then I'm thinking, okay, so pacing-wise, this must be a moment of levity, perhaps, a light-hearted moment of bonding between what we think is our protagonist and, what ostensibly are maybe our antagonists. We don't know at this point in the movie. We don't know who the enemy is. We don't know who we're supposed to be suspicious of. But I found that scene particularly striking because it obviously comes after this horrific ritualistic punishment for adultery that's shown in broad daylight, in bold Technicolor. Actually, I don't know if it's Technicolor, but you get what I mean. And then in no time, the same tribespeople are pulling the innards out of a warrior they've captured and killed and dancing with them before eating the innards fresh out of the carcass and feeding our main guy what looks like the liver, raw and steaming from an open wound. In
that moment, that sort of took me out of it because I was like, okay, they might be savages, but, E. coli exists even in the jungle, right? So
can you get E. coli from eating fresh human liver?
I don't know. I would assume so.
People do eat a lot of raw offal, don't they? They eat a lot of raw liver, a lot of raw kidneys.
Human ones.
Especially like bodybuilders. Yeah, well, I don't know about human ones. We don't know. Do we know what we're eating?
It's all horse, right?
It's all horse. Yeah, it could all be horse. But yeah, I mean, it is immediately gross. We immediately think all kinds of, culturally we're thinking about cleanliness and illness and food preparation standards and ratings of the restaurants that we like and things like that. And this guy's heaving, steaming guts out of a human corpse and stuffing it in this guy's mouth. It's a bummer.
He's like, fuck it, I'll eat it.
He does eat it, yeah. He chows down. And my imagining is that that's animal offal, but still raw and still being shoved in the actor's actual mouth.
So when he's chewing, you can see the food that he's chewing is cooked.
Whatever that is in his mouth is horrendous when he's chewing.
Yeah, it looks like, I don't know, really dry meat, probably pork.
Something mealy, yeah.
Turtle-y, maybe.
Possibly turtle.
They ate the turtle.
Yeah.
Like, the killing of the turtle is something that would have been done anyway by the tribespeople, blah, blah, blah. You didn't need to fucking film it. But that's the get out of being a horrible fucking prick free card, isn't it? Like, all this stuff was happening anyway. Yeah. So I just did more of it.
Cutting a spider monkey's head in half on film twice, Yes, it's a bummer, but you know what? I read something that was pretty juvenile. I love reading IMDb reviews, and I read an IMDb review that said, like, yes, the animal cruelty in this movie is horrible, but is it any worse than a burger at McDonald's? And I was like,
yeah.
Yes. Yes, it is. But is it? And it did just spark this idea in my head that, again, is this guy just fucking doing it to fuck with us? Is he provoking that kind of conversation? Like, I cut in half a spider monkey's head, and these tribes people ate the brains fresh out the skull because that is a delicacy to them. And I did it in my movie to have it in the movie. Is it provoking people to have that debate of like, oh, that's savage behavior, and then to have some wise guy in the corner smoking a thin cigarette say, is it any different to a burger at McDonald's? Is he trying to evoke
Who's this guy? I want to do a podcast with that guy.
He's around. He's around.
I want to see what he thinks about Cannibal Holocaust.
I mean, this is it. I honestly don't know. I mean, it's uncomfortable, I think, for most people to watch a lot of that animal cruelty, regardless of your lifestyle choices regarding your consumption of meat, etc., etc. It's difficult to watch that shit. They hack open this turtle, taking away the lower belly exoskeleton part of a turtle shell and showing its insides is surely deeply symbolic of some kind of horrible, exposure, just rendering you naked, belly forward, open as you have your guts eaten. It's foreshadowing in a lot of ways. It's a grim and horrific scene. Turtles are ancient and therefore in a lot of cultures worthy of our respect and our reverence. And we don't, I say quote unquote, a lot of people don't eat turtle, a lot of people do. But we're made to feel deeply uncomfortable by a lot of the animal cruelty.
Yeah.
Even, you see a lot of snakes die in movies, I think, in this era. People chop snakes in half all the time, chop them into lots of little bits. But you're still just like, oof. There's a lot of that. Do you think it serves a purpose?
The spider gets me more for some reason.
Yeah. Because I don't think I've ever seen a spider just chopped in half like that. Like a big, hairy spider just whack, chopped in half.
Yeah, just macheted.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It's not much fun. Not much fun. But it's not supposed to be fun, is it?
No, and I think the thing is as well, when you watch the spider get cut in half, it sort of looks fake, but it isn't.
Yeah, it's too real.
Yeah, so again, it's that whole sort of fucked up dichotomy between like what's real and what's not real. What was the question you asked me? Sorry.
Is it necessary? How do you feel about the animal cruelty in the movie? I'm not gonna stand here and defend animal cruelty because that's not how I live my life. I'm strongly opposed to all animal cruelty. But in this movie, I don't know. I'm just so torn.
I think it serves that purpose in that we want to see some reality and we want to see some not quite reality. And you can't show people really being killed and eaten by cannibals.
No.
So this is how you get the reality. And it's all about putting the reality up against the fiction and seeing what sticks or seeing what happens or because that reality, like we say, because it's real, it looks fake.
Yeah.
So it makes the stuff
in context.
Yeah. So it makes the stuff that is fake look real.
God, that's fucking good. Yeah, I think you're right. So in the service of that as a filmmaking device, it is necessary.
You can't argue with it, but
we don't like it, but it's a thing that happens in this film, and we're here to talk about it. So I think you might hit the nail on the head there, bud. I think the stuff that's real exists to confuse us for the grand finale, where the stuff that's fake is meant to be very real. And again, that's drawing that line. I hate how fucked everyone's feet are in this film. Every time anyone lifts their feet up, they're just covered in blisters that are real. I think those blisters are real as fuck.
I low-key love the moment where they cut off that guy's leg and he dies anyway.
Again, a scene of immense brutality that I'd completely forgot. Yeah, he gets bitten by a snake, and instead of sucking the, doing the Hollywood thing and sucking the venom out and I got you, brother, and carrying him through the swamp or whatever, they just hack his fucking leg off at the thigh and then he dies.
I think about how I would feel in that situation as someone who's been like, okay, we've applied a tourniquet to this guy's leg, we've cut it off, we've burnt it with a machete to try and sear it shut.
A lot.
But he's just dead anyway. So I've done all of this horrible, harrowing stuff and for nothing.
Yep.
It's the entire plot of The Mist.
It is the entire plot of The Mist, but summed up in one quick minute. And then the best part, they just bury him in leaves. They just pile some leaves on top of him and walk away.
I feel like if I was an indie musician, like an American indie musician in like the Shins era, in like 2011, I feel like my album would have been called Bury Me in Leaves.
Bury Me in Leaves. It's too emo for indie. It's pretty good.
You think it's too emo? I'm thinking like, you know, that sort of Rilo Kiley.
Yeah,
like
I can see that.
I figured out it's because they elected the band that Blake from Rilo Kiley. He's got his album's called Bury Me in Rings.
Ah,
there it is.
Bury Me in Leaves. What about Leave Me in Berries?
Yeah. What about
leave Me in Berries?
Me leave berries in?
Perfect. Let's get to work. Fuck this podcast. The shooting of the pig is a perfect example to me of something that looks too fake to be real. It's a piglet, it's tied to a little stake, and it just gets shot in the fucking head. And it just falls over sideways.
I mean, what are you doing if you're getting shot?
I'm falling over sideways.
I imagine you're probably someone that would overact.
Of course I would. You know what? I invented a game when I was a kid, and this was the entire game. One kid got to sit on the wall of my garden with a toy gun of their choice, while 4 or more kids ran at that kid, and he shot each of them. And whoever died in the most spectacular theatrical way got to sit on the wall and shoot the next round of kids.
That is the most Sam Russo thing I've ever heard in my life.
No, like points or scoring. Just do that until you fucking can't do it anymore. It was amazing. I Learned to Die Young. How's that for an indie album title?
Yeah, Learning to Die Young by Sam Russo.
Yep. I played that for like entire summers. It was a great game.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. I have a propensity for the dramatic in that sense. But yeah, they just blap this pig in the noodle and it plops sideways and that's it. Game over. You see that and you're like, what kind of fucking animatronic wizardry is that? And then you find out it's real.
It's just a real pig. They just blapped
pig
in the noodle or whatever it was that you said.
I did. I said noodle. So, I mean, that for me was the least realistic real thing that happens in the whole movie. I just didn't think shooting a pig in the head would look like that. But now I've seen it and I know. And I've seen it in the context of the abattoir. You know, my granddad was a foreman in an abattoir for like 30 years. I've seen that shit. But it's for some reason in that movie, God, blimey, horrible.
Well, it's because it looks fake and shit. And then it's immediately followed up by tribes people, all their faces all burnt off. Yeah. And I think it would look fake and shit if you hadn't just seen a pig not explode. Do you know what I mean?
Like, it does not explode.
Like, there's nothing cinematic about that pig getting shot, and there's something very cinematic about the burns on the people. It's the worst kind of movie magic.
It really is. And do you know what? I know we're not like classic movie guys. Like neither of us have got degrees in, you know, filmmaking or whatever people get degrees in nowadays. But I think you've nailed it, dude. I think that's a really astute observation. That horribly real death of a real creature is immediately before the mass death of the fake mass death of other real humans. And it sets it up, it tees it up. That's what this movie seems to be constantly doing to us, is getting us ready for, you know, the fucked up shit with clever switcheroos.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's immensely uncomfortable. There's no ceremony around killing this pig at all. There's no like playing it for a tear-jerking moment. There's nothing tender. There's nothing that even tries to sort of anthropomorphize or humanize the creature that's being killed. So it's so un-Hollywood in that respect. It's just like, check it out. Bang. Next.
Yeah, well, I think it's in the vibe that like they're trying to usher them all into the place. And it's pretty scary. And also it would be annoying to have to like untie the pig and try and shoo it into the... Yeah. Like,
it's also like they're dumb.
It makes sense, but
it's really interesting how badly they kill these tribes people. They round them up in this hut and set it on fire, but they don't even seal the doors. Do you know what I mean? That's how lots of them run away and get away. And we're kind of seeing these people as ineptly cruel fucking dicks, basically.
But I think what they're after there in their footage is that they want to show the tribes people running away from their flaming hut with their faces all mangled and horrible. I think that's the footage that...
That's the shot they're trying to get for their documentary.
Yeah, because when they're talking, they're saying that, like, oh, it's been set on fire by the tree people, the Yanomamos. Or he always calls them the Yanomamos. Which I don't know if that's on purpose or whether he's just, like, whether it's meant to be like he doesn't even care to name
He gets
these
that
people
wrong
correctly.
too. Yeah.
Or whether it's just a sort of a fluke.
I mean, so we're at the point now where we're watching this footage because our main man, played by Robert Kerman, our big boss man, Harold Monroe, professor of anthropology, has retrieved the canisters of film from the trees and taken them back. And it's after this fake massacre that was not perpetrated by a rival tribe, that was set up to be so by our missing, lost / dead documentary filmmakers, that we get the classic post-massacre bang scene where two of the filmmakers just fucking go at it in front of all the tribespeople, and it's filmed for no reason.
Yeah, well, I think that we're supposed to think that these people are just dicks.
Yeah, I think at that point we're fully in on them being dicks.
Yeah, is it Jack or is it Mark that's filming there? I can't remember, but one of them's also, I think it's Jack, and he's filming earlier on when Faye comes in and she's not wearing any clothes as well. Not earlier on.
Constantly filming her.
Yeah. And it's just like juvenile bullshit. Which is like, it's so weird because, like, the characters are portrayed as like these really sort of infantile idiots, but then they're also horribly calculating rapists.
Yeah.
The one scene that feels really incongruous to me is the scene where they rape the native girl.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they do that.
Nor do I. And not just from a, YOY perspective. Cinematically, I don't understand why it happens there. There's no, like, Apocalypse Now style stripping of your humanity from all the horror that you've seen. No. And it leads you to do, horrific, amoral, immoral acts. There's none of that build up. They're just, but they're also not like Spring Break. Do you know what I mean? They're not portrayed as being so lacking principle, character, and any kind of morality that they would just grab and rape the nearest defenseless human. So it's super weird tonally, I think, because it was probably really hard for them to act.
Yeah.
It was probably absolutely horrific for everyone involved. It's a fucking grim scene. Yeah. But you're right, it doesn't jive with their... I just took it as another confusing blow to dodge in this movie. I was like, I don't fully understand what's happening. I know that it's horrible. I'm being made to feel really uncomfortable. And I'm just going to try and dodge it, get through it, and move on to the next thing. But reflecting on it, yeah, you're right. Tonally, it feels jarring.
Like, it just feels like everything that they do throughout the movie up until that point, you could explain it as it's in service to the documentary that they're trying to make.
Sure.
As horrible and as fucked up as it all is, like, they're making this documentary and they want this very specific footage. Whereas there's no value in... Like, they're never going to be able to show a video of them raping a tribesperson.
No, it's demented to film it, isn't it? Maybe.
Yeah. And I guess that's why Faye's all like, screaming about the fact that they're wasting the film, which is, again, horrible.
Maybe that is the point that it serves to illustrate, is that even in the depths of that depravity, the main concern is conserving film. And not like we're going to get exposed as being horrendous rapists, but that we're wasting film. I don't know. That's rough.
Yeah, and I think the rape is ultimately like the act of what they've been doing the whole time, and it's the physical act of that. It's how you personify the way that they've acted and the way that they've treated these tribes people before this.
Yeah.
But narratively, I don't think it makes a massive amount of sense.
No. I did make one note about that scene where one of the lines of dialogue is, so when they're showing it back in this private screening, it ends and the professor says he's changing reels. So that's not the end. He's changing reels. It carries on. We don't get to see the rest of it, thankfully. But that line was really well placed, I think, because you get that moment where you're like, oh, fuck, it's over. No, he's just changing reels. I thought that was pretty amazingly done.
Yeah, I think like, a lot of that stuff where they're showing the Green Inferno stuff, or they're leading into the Green Inferno stuff.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the back and forth to the screening room is a bit like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, I think maybe it wants to remind you that somebody is watching.
Yeah, I mean, my guard's down for all that stuff because I feel safe. You know, I'm back in like an environment I recognize, surrounded by pretty predictable people. So my thinking was that movement is sort of just keeping you in that sort of hypnotized, safe space before blam, they just start smashing you to bits in that cinema screening. It worked in that regard. It's a total shift in terms of the color palette and the way people are behaving and the clothes they're wearing and everything. It's like a real palette cleanser before you get straight back into hell. And you know what? We skimmed over a horrifically violent scene that I'm going to just say I weirdly enjoyed. There's a birth scene where one of the native women is giving birth standing up while she's trussed, and the villagers are, you know, heaving the baby out of her. And then they just bite the cord, run off, and throw the newborn baby into some wet mud and just pack it down and walk away. They just like lift up a flap of mud, throw the baby under, put the mud back down, and leave. And it's so brutal that it's borderline comical. I just don't have much else to say about it other than that. I laughed this like horribly piercing, shrill, singular laugh when that happened, and then I just curled into a ball. Like, it was awful. Absolutely awful. Oh, and then they beat the woman to death with rocks, by the way.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, nothing in this movie ends without someone being beaten to death with rocks. Do you remember that scene? Was that in your cut? Probably not.
No, it was in the cut.
It was.
Maybe the surgery by tribe or whatever it is that Alan Yates describes it as.
Yeah.
Surgery by society or whatever it is that he says. But the throwing it into the mud, that wasn't in there. This cut, it's an absolute dream. It's
indescribable, that scene. To anyone who hasn't seen it, I'm not going to say I recommend it, but it was a real high point for me. I mean, that's when these guys really begin to reveal themselves to be the scum that they are. You know, they're referring to the natives as monkeys basically all the time. They're raping them basically all the time. We get the completely iconic skewered woman scene, which I realized I'd seen replicated a million times in all kinds of knockoff merchandise and, you know, other movies and you know, pieces of iconography that are kind of referencing this movie. It is a really arresting scene, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it looks so real.
It looks 100% real to me. Yeah,
and like the scary thing about that to me is that the idea that they punish a victim of rape.
Yeah,
like it's so horrible that like I don't know, like in this society, rape is the worst thing you could do. That even if you're raped, like it's just you can't live anymore because it's just such a horrible thing to have happened.
There's not much worse in this whole movie than what we're presented with in that scene in terms of exactly what you just described, the visuals, the characters' reactions to it. That whole disgusting tableau is so hard to watch and such a rough ride that I almost forgot it. Like, I almost put it out of my mind. It was so hard to deal with.
Yeah, there's a moment in that scene where if I could jump into my TV and punch Alan Yates in the fucking mouth, I absolutely would.
Yeah,
like the moment when he's like smiling.
He's smiling and he says like careful.
Watch it, man. You're on camera, and he's like, oh.
Yeah, watch it, Alan. I'm shooting. Is the line. I wrote it down because I was like, this. If there was any point, if it wasn't so close to the end, I really think I would have struggled to watch the rest of the movie. Like, I had the exact same urge as you. I was so sickened by that guy. I just wanted to kind of turn it off, at least for a little breaky poo, and then come back maybe. Because that is just such a disgusting reaction.
Yeah. And I think that's again, Deodato is playing with us there. Like, we want him to die.
Yeah.
And he fucking does, like 4 minutes later. It's fucking great. Well done.
And it is him who gets his dick cut off, right?
I would say so, yeah. I think so.
Because that's the best gore effect in the movie for me. They grab his dick, they cut it off, and a little bit of blood squirts out. Just done really well. Again, like, even I, knowing what I know about this movie and knowing I was going to talk about it on a podcast, was like, fuck, dude, that could have been real. They could have cut some guy's dick off.
It's not my favourite someone's dick being cut off scene.
This was my Cannibal Holocaust game that I wanted to play with you. What are your favourite dick cutting off scenes in movies?
So it doesn't really get cut off in Antichrist. Have you seen Antichrist?
No, I haven't seen many other movies where guys get their dicks cut off. Full disclosure. You're the expert.
I'm going to spoil Antichrist for you now.
Please do.
It's fucking horrible. It's one of the most misogynistic movies ever made.
Okay.
I fucking love it.
Okay.
It's about Willem Dafoe and his wife, Charlotte Gainsbourg, and they're having sex and their baby falls out the window and dies.
Okay.
While they're having this really passionate sex. But she watches it happen, but she's so in the throes of passion that she just can't stop it.
God.
And then the rest of the movie is like her grieving and then realizing that women are actually the predominant evil in the world and women must be destroyed. And at that point, they go to a cabin. They go like to grieve in a cabin. He's like a grief counselor, Willem Dafoe, or a psychiatrist who deals with grief or something.
Okay.
And they go to a cabin in the woods, and she sort of slowly goes insane, and then cuts her clitoris off with a massive pair of rusty scissors.
Oh, it's that movie.
And then bashes Willem Dafoe's penis in with a 2x4 until it's all broken and bloody, and then jacks him off until he comes blood everywhere.
Ooh, is that your number one?
That's the one. That's the dream.
That's the one. Oh, good grief, Jamie. Well, now I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I mean it's fine that you know it's coming because it's so fucking horrible.
Yeah.
It's impossible to imagine.
See, that's not one of my big weirdy no-nos. Like, I can watch dicks get smashed up without really feeling too weird about it. But this dick being cut off, again, it's lacking ceremony, to say the least. They just whip it off. It comes off the way I imagine a dick would come off if it was chopped.
I'm trying to think of my other favourite dicks being cut off scenes. So there's a movie called Bad Biology, which is about a guy with a huge, insane dick that he injects with steroids every day, and a woman somewhere else in the world that has 9 clitorises on the inside of her vagina.
Right.
And like they're like perfectly made for each other.
Right.
And so they meet and they have amazing sex and they fall in love. But then he's injected his dick with too many steroids that it becomes sentient. And like removes itself. It's fucking great. It's a Frank Henenlotter film. I would recommend it to everybody. It came out like maybe 2008, 2009, maybe 2010. I think there's a really good dick being ripped off in one of the Toxic Avenger movies, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I can dimly remember some dick ripping. I mean, dick ripping and dick cutting. Let's just say dick removal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good starter list, considering you had a grand total of 3 seconds to pull that together. I can't say that I think that's your exhaustive list. If you were given some homework, I guarantee that could be a pretty meaty blog post, should we say.
There's a rumour that in the sex scene with Charlotte Gainsbourg in Antichrist, like you see his dick going inside of Charlotte Gainsbourg. And there's a rumour that they had to use a stunt dick because Willem Dafoe's dick is too big.
Yeah, that rumour is pretty widespread, right? That Willem Dafoe is Donkey Man himself.
Yeah, Don Quixote.
Don Quixote, you could say.
His big dick is tilted at windmills.
By the time we get to all this dick talk, we're essentially avoiding the movie's inevitable conclusion, which is in this orgy of violence, the film crew is pretty systematically massacred. I guess, do we actually see them being eaten? I can't even remember. We don't see them getting eaten, do we?
No, not at all.
Which is interesting for a movie that builds up from the very beginning that we're going to see these guys get eaten.
Yeah, so like Faye stuff happens in the distance.
She gets gang raped and then beaten to death, which is, again, very hard to watch.
Yeah. And then Jack, we see his stuff happen sort of quite far away.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Alan's the last to get it.
Yeah.
But again, in my notes, I just wrote, Alan gets bongoed. I can't remember what happened to him. I was so bongoed. Checked out on the violence by that point. I think normally in my notes, bongoed means beaten to death over the head, but I can't remember what happened to the guy. It was so fucking hard to watch the end of this movie. You're just built up to it, drained all the way to this point, and then you're expected to sit and watch this, like you said, probably 10-minute, just brutal rape, murder, dick chopping, head smashing, hyper realistic hot jungle doom scene.
Yeah, I think it might be Jack that gets his dick cut off.
I think it might be Jack. Yeah.
Sorry to derail you there, but I think it is Jack that gets his dick cut off.
I think that makes sense. What are you feeling as you kind of know this movie's coming to an end with this scene? You know, it's probably there's not gonna be much beyond this apart from a great final line and a big message. But as these guys are getting fucking shredded in the jungle, how are you feeling in terms of like a resolution to a big wonky curve?
It's the only way that this film could end, because we are throughout the movie. I mean, that final line, "Who are the real cannibals?" I mean, it's not subtle, and this film is not subtle in any real way, and like it's all set up to make you think these guys fucking deserved what they got.
Yeah. So
there's a sort of release in watching that happen. I mean, it's an unpleasant release.
Is it giving you what you deserve? Because when I was watching it, I was like, there's this thing in watching horror movies and in our consumption of this kind of movie in general where there's people you want to die. And that's not a particularly cool, way to be, is it? Like, to want people to die, even in movies, I guess is a little bit fucked. But, we want people to die, we want to see them die, and we want it to be exactly in keeping with all the fucked up shit they've done leading up to this point. Does this movie give us that, but make it so hard to watch that we're kind of punished for wanting them to die?
Yeah, absolutely. That is literally what's happening here. Like,
is that the idea?
Yeah. It's like the film wants us to hate the film crew so badly that, like, yes, this is their comeuppance, but then it's our comeuppance for wanting their comeuppance because it's just horrible.
I definitely felt that way. I felt like I was being punished for thinking ill of these people. And again, how fucking confusing is that to watch? Yeah. Because our narrative conventions and everything we understand about movie watching is, whether we like it or not, we're kind of bred to think the bad guys will get what's coming to them and the good guys will ride off into the sunset. Fucking nobody's riding off into the sunset in this movie.
Well, Monroe is. He's walking off into the New York streets.
True, he does end up kind of, sauntering away. But still, he's the last man standing. He's no perfect angel saint. No, but he does. Not. He does ultimately survive the Green Inferno.
He doesn't rape anybody.
He does not, that we see. I mean, all he does is, he's kind of invasive in his rescue mission, I guess. He does munch some human liver, but
he's like passive. He's a passenger on that journey, isn't he?
He's a Herzog.
Yeah.
He's our Werner in this hot jungle. We don't want anything bad to happen to him, really, throughout the movie, I don't think. I don't wish ill for him.
He doesn't do anything that makes us feel like that, I don't think.
He makes me pretty uncomfortable for quite a while at the beginning, and I don't know whether to get acquainted with him. I'm thinking, like, is this guy our guy? Like, he seems kind of... He's not like the leading man type. He doesn't feel like he's going to last in this environment to me at the beginning. So I think that's also another surprise, is that at the end, he's our walk off into the sunset guy.
Films in the 70s had the balls to cast people that were fucking ugly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I love that. And, like...
Yeah, same.
So that's. I think we're just ruined by Hollywood. Like, this guy looks like a normal guy, therefore he's obviously scum.
Yeah. Yeah, he's insufferable. It's inexcusable that you would cast someone so normal in this role. Yeah. No, it's great. It's great casting, I think. And, we've sort of put through this ending. We suffer it. We get to the end of it. We feel horrible about ourselves. We do get a weirdly sort of like, I feel like it's a piss take, tongue-in-cheek Hollywood ending. Like another fuck you. I think it's saying fuck you to the very end. Which, if I'm summarizing my feelings about this movie, that's what I respect most about it, is that it says fuck you to everything. And that has to be what maketh a Cannibal Holocaust fan, I think. When you meet real diehard fans of these movies, that's at the core of what they love, is fuck you, everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm fucking with you. Fuck you. This is the movie of my dreams. That seems to be the central attitude.
I think there was a period in my late teens where I might have been that guy.
Oh, fuck yeah. I think we've all had that phase. Mine didn't necessarily align with the movie Cannibal Holocaust, but the spirit was still there. You know, that's what resonated with me about this movie so much, was that spirit, that sort of fiercely independent, you know, willing to offend, happy to show stuff that's absolutely abhorrent to the vast majority of the population, willing to stand trial for murder to make a movie. That's pretty fucking valiant, you know. I got an enormous amount of respect for that. And that's where the movie ends. It concludes with that, again, pretty iconic scene, I think.
I think that line is wrong, right? Is it wrong on purpose? Is that what you're thinking? Because, like, the line is, who are the real savages? It should be, right? Like, it should be...
Rather than cannibals.
Yeah, like... The real cannibals are the people that eat
people.
Eat people? Yeah.
Dude, you might be right. Oh my God, is it still saying fuck you to me? This is the second time I've watched it. Maybe like probably the second time I've had a proper conversation about it. Has it slipped another fuck you by me without me noticing? You might be right. We know who the real cannibals are, dickwad. They're the people that eat the other people.
Literally.
Fuck.
Like,
my God, I think you're right.
Is that a fuck you, or is that
it's not
an Italian translation thing?
God, I hope it's another fuck you. Because if it is, they got me again. They just keep getting me. The last word of the movie is a... Because you don't pick up on that shit when you're watching it, do you? You're just kind of soaking it up. I think you're right. I think it's one last middle finger hoisted, covered in bugs, on a half-eaten hand.
Yeah, being chomped on by the real cannibals.
The real cannibals, the ones who eat people. I mean, there's absolutely no denying this movie is a wild ride from start to finish. It's not for everyone. It's not something that a lot of people would even enjoy. It's definitely not something that a lot of people would call a great film, or that a lot of people would even tolerate the existence of. It's been censored, it's been chopped, it's been cut, it's been illegalized, it's been banned, it's done the rounds. Copied. Yeah, it's been ripped off endlessly. Do you think you could see yourself willingly going to the cinema and watching a straight up modern remake of Cannibal Holocaust if it came out next year?
Like, no, because it wouldn't have anything new to say. In the way that sort of speculative sci-fi is talking about the time period and every time period that follows. Like, the questions that this is asking are as relevant today as they were when they made this. Sure. So there'd be nothing new or interesting to say in Cannibal Holocaust 2023.
And you'd be dealing with CG piglets and monkeys.
You would.
Which I cannot tolerate.
You'd also be dealing with the weight of found footage and the baggage that carries. It's
almost like a legacy genre now. It's been hammered to bits.
It's so weird because, like, there was Cannibal Holocaust, there was a few, like, other cinema verite films before that, there was nothing, and then there was the Blair Witch Project. And it's so weird that, like, this film was so influential, but not in a found footage way.
I think because it was, and I want to give credit to found footage as a, you know, if we're calling it a genre, it's really hard to nail.
Yeah.
It was even harder then, and also this movie nearly cost a guy his life, his career, his freedom. So I think a lot of, like, pretty limp movie makers who are maybe toying with the idea of found footage movies looked at that and were like, no, I want to start a career. I don't want to end it. I love Blair Witch Project. I love the second one, and I would say I really like the 2016 one as well. And those movies don't exist without Cannibal Holocaust. So, you know, I kind of owe Cannibal Holocaust my enjoyment of those movies and my pretty rabid fandom of the original Blair Witch Project. It's one of my fondest movie-going experiences of my whole life. One of my fondest rental experiences of my whole life, because I'd seen it in the cinema and I wanted to have a big movie night around it. Got a lot out of that movie, and it really inspired me in a lot of ways. And yeah, we don't get there without Cannibal Holocaust, but you're right, there is a huge gap between. It's a huge leap.
And, like, the stuff that's happening in Japan, like those guinea pig movies, like Flower of Flesh and Blood and Devil's Experiment, they were playing with found footage because you're meant to think that you're watching snuff.
Yeah.
The same with, like, to a lesser extent, because it's after Blair Witch, but, like, your August Underground stuff, which is unpleasant to the nth degree. That's like torture porn without any real nuance.
Sure.
It's just torture, which, to be fair, Flower of Flesh and Blood and Devil's Experiment and some of those guinea pig movies are like that. But you're meant to feel like how you felt when you were watching those bits of Cannibal Holocaust, like,
yeah,
oh shit, it's like I'm watching a real thing, but I know that I'm not watching a real thing, but it feels so real that it's like unpleasant and horrible, and I feel creepy and gross, but I know there's a part of me somewhere in there that knows that it's not real, and therefore I'm allowed to carry on watching.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think it's trying to do. And that bled outwards, and a lot of movies were made with that spirit that were complete garbage. But then a lot, I think, were made that were really challenging, quite exciting, and spurred, people's imaginations into bigger and crazier things. Which is weird to say about a movie where a piglet gets shot in the head with a real life gun in real life. Do you know what I mean? That's a
Babe
pretty
2
wild
was pretty
leap.
hard going, wasn't it?
Babe 2, Babe in the Jungle. Good luck, buddy. Jesus. Yes, I mean, yeah, a rough ride, but a pretty influential and iconic. You can't talk about challenging movies in the horror genre without talking about Cannibal Holocaust. And there's a certain type of horror movie fan who just lights up like a light bulb when you talk about Cannibal Holocaust, and it's you. I sent you a picture of my face at the end of Cannibal Holocaust, and it was not the face that you sent me at the end of Cannibal Holocaust. And that's the beauty of it, I think, is that people get different things from it. People enjoy it on different levels. And it's definitely not the funnest movie that we're going to talk about on this podcast, but it is definitely one that you kind of got to raise your glass to, at least on some level as a fan of the genre, and say, yes.
Will you give it up, man? Nobody's out there. We're alone. Oh no, there's somebody out there. I'm picking up all this crosstalk.
So Sam, that was Cannibal Holocaust. How are you feeling over there?
Oof, I'm holding up. That was a rough ride. A harrowing movie full of awful, awful things. But you come out the end of it feeling like you've had a bloody good time, weirdly.
Especially when we sit down and have a chat about it. That's always a good time.
It's a soothing balm for all of the bite marks and the contusions and the hematoma and all the things that cannibals love to eat.
Yeah. It's like a little brain sorbet.
It is a little palate cleanser for the brain. You absolutely smashed it there. A little pickled ginger for the frontal lobe.
So tell the good people what they can do to support Final Transmission.
Fucking eat me raw. There's a lot of things you can do to support Final Transmission. One of my favorites is tell your friends, family, tell your weird Uncle Larry, tell your buds, tell your colleagues. You can also, while we're just chatting shit right now, why don't you just use that thumb of yours to tap a star rating on whatever you're listening to us on, and just write a few words about what you thought of the pod. Be a critic. Take us to task if we fucked up or if we suck, or just tell us we're amazing. I mean, we don't get enough of that, so give us a little bit of that. Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah.
What else can we do, Jamie?
You can sign up to follow us on Patreon.
Yeah, reach into those deep, dirty pockets.
Where for just as little as £1 per month, or $1 if you're foreign, you can support the podcast. Get some extra content over there. We've got all kinds of good things coming up. We've got some written content. We do 2 new episodes per month. There might be some fiction coming up. We might do some video stuff in the future. Loads of cool things happening over on the Patreon.
I could coat hanger my way into your car and steal a pound out the cup holder every day for the rest of your life, and you'd never even realize.
I don't have a car.
That's a threat.
Yeah, if you don't...
I don't have a car. I'd have to get into your house somehow then. Okay?
You're always...
All right, if that's what it takes.
You couldn't get in because, as Hipster Nosferatu, I wouldn't invite you in, and therefore you wouldn't be able to cross the threshold.
I have to be invited in with a very high-grade coffee as Hipster Nosferatu, or a really good IPA, or something super hipster. It's the only way I'm allowed into a home.
Just riding on a fixie.
Riding across the sky? Yeah, absolutely. Or a fucking penny farthing or some shit. You ever seen a hipster on a penny farthing?
No. Did we see...
Oh, I live in Cambridge, so I guess that explains why.
When we were together the other week, we saw a fucking hipster on a
unicycle.
Yeah. It wasn't even a unicycle. It was like... Was it like a hoverboard, but with one wheel?
Oh, yeah, the electric wheel thing. Yeah. The one-wheel electric skateboard.
What a dick.
Those are fucking dumb. Sign up to the Patreon and we'll send you a one-wheel electric skateboard every month for the rest of your life.
We won't do that. If you buy one, we'll steal it from you every month for the rest of your life.
Deal.
How many little one-wheel electric skateboards can fit in the canal near your home? The answer is yours if you sign up to the Patreon.
That makes no sense. Cannibal Holocaust has burnt our brains. I mean, as far as awful movies go, this was pretty great. And as far as awful people go, it's been lovely hanging out with you, James.
Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.
I'll see you next time on the next episode of Final Transmission.